Hi, and welcome back to Riley's on the Road.
We were in Cape Cod in Boston, Massachusetts for 2 weeks.
Let's see what we did there.
We stayed in a campground in between Boston and Cape Cod. I arrived in Boston from Balboa Island, California, a few days after they got there. The Orchard House was the home of Louisa May Alcott, the author of Little Women. This house is the setting of her story starring Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy. There are no pictures allowed inside, but as a classic book lover, and her story in particular, this was a must-see while we were in the area. Minuteman National Historical Park encompasses the battlefield of the Battle of Concord, or the first battle of the Revolutionary War. On a side note, the video provided by the Park Service was one of the best we've ever seen. Most of you know the story, but let me do a little recap. On April 18, 1775, word reached the Sons of Liberty that British soldiers were about to march into the countryside to confiscate the gunpowder, ammunition, and weapons that were stockpiled in Concord, Massachusetts. The Sons of Liberty were also worried that two leaders of the organization, Samuel Adams and John Hancock, who were staying in Lexington, were going to be arrested. Paul Revere was sent to warn Samuel Adams and John Hancock of the marching redcoats, and to alert the Minutemen in surrounding towns to be ready for battle. Paul Revere and quite a few other riders rode all through the night warning townspeople as they went. At 5 a.m. on Lexington Green, 70 militiamen faced hundreds of British troops. At some point, a shot rings out, although it is unknown which side fired first. The British opened fire, killing 7 colonists and mortally wounding another. The Redcoats continued to Concord, and there were 400 Minutemen to meet them at the Old North Bridge. Gunfire ensued, leaving 2 colonists and 3 British dead. This is now known as a shot heard round the world. The Redcoats were ordered to retreat back to Boston, but were chased all the way by angry militiamen, leading to chaos and disorder in the troops. By the end of the battle, there were 300 British casualties and only 93 American.
On Saturday, I got back from California. For dinner, we went to the Bull and Finch Bar and Grill. It is the pub that inspired the TV show Cheers. My dad had a drink at the set bar, then we had dinner. My dad had a huge burger called the Giant Norm Burger. On Sunday, we went to Plymouth Patuxent Living History Museum. First, we went to the 17th century English village. Later, we went to the gristmill and Mayflower too. It was a cool museum with different artifacts and reproductions. We bought some native succotash, peascod, and Indian pudding. They are great! After that, we walked to the actual village, which is a reproduction of the village from 1620. They named it after the city they left from in England called Plymouth. That is where the first Thanksgiving was held after a good first harvest. First, we went up the lookout tower / fort. It was a great view. Then we walked through the village. There were quite a few reenactors who we could ask questions and learn some cool information. One lady was making a basket out of branches, and a man was doing some 17th century style writing. Gemma and I got to write our names. They also had goats, cows, and lots of gardens. A little later, there was a militia show. Gemma and Dad got to be a part of it. They held spears and marched, then practiced charging. That was really cool. All in all, it was an awesome experience and a good way to learn about the Plymouth colonists. After Plymouth Patuxent, we went to Plymouth Gristmill. The gristmill is a reproduction of the colonists' original 1636 grain mill. We got a tour through the mill. It was really interesting. We played some games, looked at different ways to grind the corn, and looked at how the mill works. The mill is a working gristmill, and we bought some of their blue cornmeal.
While we were still in Plymouth, we checked out Plymouth Rock. This is supposedly where the Pilgrims first landed when they came to the New World, although there isn't much proof. Then we went to the Mayflower too, a replica of the ship the Pilgrims used to sail across the Atlantic. There aren't any detailed descriptions of the ship, but the reproduction was made as similar to the original as possible. On September 6, 1620, the Mayflower set sail from Plymouth, England with 102 passengers on board. Only 41 of them were separatists, or pilgrims as we call them today. The Mayflower was a cargo ship made for transporting goods, so passengers stayed in the cramped and uncomfortable cargo hold. After 66 grueling days at sea, Pilgrims arrived in Cape Cod on November 11, 1620, with the same number of passengers they had started with, and though one person had died, a baby had been born. The Mayflower Compact was drafted and signed by 41 men aboard the ship. It was created to ensure order in the colony and loyalty to the King of England, while still self-governing. It was an early yet successful form of democracy. Since it was winter when they arrived, the Pilgrims stayed on the ship until March of 1621, when they could move on to the mainland. Over half of the passengers died that winter, including 14 out of only 19 women aboard.
On Tuesday, we drove to Providence, Rhode Island, and saw the Capitol building. We had a guided tour through the building. It was very beautiful with lots of marble. The tour guide was very nice as well. Did you know that the Rhode Island State Capitol building's dome is the 4th largest in the world and the 2nd in America?
We went to New York Sound System for lunch to have hot wieners. They weren't great. We'd pass next time.
One day we went with Mom to Cape Cod National Seashore. On the day we went, there was a no swimming flag and a beware of sharks flag. We took a walk down the beach and it was beautiful. We spotted lots of seals on the way and an island full of seals at the end. We stopped at the lighthouse on the Cape Cod potato chips bag too. We got our Junior Ranger badges from the visitor center.
We begun the Freedom Trail on the Boston Common. The Freedom Trail leads tourists through Boston to lots of historical sites that played an important role in our country's fight for freedom. There is a brick line that goes all through Boston to follow the trail. We of course got a tour of the Massachusetts State House. There are lots of ornate and beautiful rooms in this capitol. It was built in 1795, making it the 4th oldest state capitol building that is still in use. Charles Bluefinch designed the building and also the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. The Great Hall was once an open-air courtyard, but was closed in and now holds the flags of the 351 Massachusetts towns and cities. We saw the House of Representatives and the Senate, which is unique with its circular seating design. We had lunch, then headed to Granary Burying Ground. This is where lots of very famous Revolutionary War heroes are buried, including John Hancock, Paul Revere, and Samuel Adams. Interestingly enough, the woman behind the Mother Goose nursery rhymes we all know and love is also buried here. We took a quick detour to try Boston cream pie, where it was first created at the Omni Parker House. We downloaded an audio tour that we listened to while we walked. It gave us lots of good information about all the stops. Next stop was Old South Meeting House, where many Sons of Liberty meetings took place, including the one in which the Boston Tea Party was organized. This balcony was where the Declaration of Independence was read for the first time. The cobblestone circle we saw here commemorates the spot where the Boston Massacre took place, even though it really happened across the street. Faneuil Hall has been used as a marketplace and meeting house since its construction in 1742. The ground level still holds gift shops, while upstairs is a meeting room preserved by the National Park Service. While we continued on the Freedom Trail, we stopped for a cannoli at Mike's Pastry. We got 5 cannolis: mint chocolate chip, lemon, Oreo, chocolate covered, and Florentine. Dad got a whoopie pie. They were a lot bigger than we were expecting. The trail led us past Paul Revere's house, but we didn't go inside because we were pretty tired already. Old North Church was next. You've probably heard of One If by Land, Two If by Sea. This is referring to Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. 2 lanterns were set up in the steeple of Old North Church to alert Paul Revere that the British soldiers were moving out of Boston on ships on the Charles River.
Our last stop was the Boston Tea Party Ships and Museum. We tried the 5 different flavors of tea. We all like different flavors. As I'm sure you know, the Boston Tea Party was when the Sons of Liberty dumped tea into the Boston Harbor in December of 1773. This year is actually the 250th anniversary. For dinner, we went to Tasty Burger. It was amazing. The service was great and the burgers were awesome. Would definitely go there again.
We went to Newport, Rhode Island, known for its gilded mansions. The Gilded Age was a time of rapid industrialization in America from 1865 to 1900. It is often referred to as the Industrial Revolution. The few lucky enough to strike it rich during this time made their money fast from oil, steel, coal, railroad, and factories. Families like the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, and the Vanderbilts chose to flaunt their wealth by building lavish mansions, holding extravagant parties. and buying elaborate wardrobes. Newport is one place these robber barons, as they were called, chose to build huge vacation homes. The Breakers is one of the best-known mansions in Newport. It was built by Cornelius Vanderbilt II, railroad tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt's grandson. It was built from 1893 to 1895 and is over 62,000 square feet. With a total of 70 rooms, the Breakers is more like a palace than a summer cottage, as the family called it. It was equipped with electricity, which was a novelty in the Gilded Age. The interior is absolutely breathtaking. It is way better in person, and I totally recommend visiting. We had a little bit more time, so we went to the closest mansion. Out of the 5 gilded mansions in Newport, Château-sur-Mer is considered the first. Finished in 1852, Château-sur-Mer is not as elaborate as the others. It is still way fancier than your average home, but it is a bit toned down from the palace-like mansions. It was used as a full-time residence, which is different from the other vacation homes. It was cool seeing the oldest gilded mansion, and I hope I will be able to come back and see the others. We went to Dell's Lemonade for a refreshing drink before heading back to the trailer. It's frozen lemonade, kind of like a slushie. They had multiple flavors like watermelon and cranberry.
One night, the campground had a huge bonfire. The boughs burned down really quickly, and there was a band. The next morning, we went to church. Later, we went to the New Bedford Whale Museum. Did you know a whale's heart is about the size of a small car? The museum had 4 different kinds of whale skeletons. They were huge. One of the first things we did was watch the 3D Ocean movie. Then we attended an hour-long tour of the museum. It was a good overview tour going through all the rooms. The museum has the Queen Victoria desk, which is a desk made of the same ship called the Resolute as the Resolute desk in the White House. Whaling history is very complex. One interesting fact is that the sperm whale was the most valuable whale. The Whale Museum has one of the biggest whaling ship models in the world at a half-scale replica. We did a scavenger hunt as well. On Monday, we went to the USS Constitution. It was built in 1797 and is the world's oldest commissioned warship afloat. She is known for her exploits during the War of 1812. She has the nickname Old Ironsides. That is because of a great naval battle against the British ship Guerriere. A sailor on the Guerriere saw British cannonballs bouncing right off the Constitution and said, "Huzzah, her sides are made of iron." They are actually made of oak, but this was turned into the nickname Old Ironsides. We learned a lot of interesting facts, including that naval officers and crews still serve aboard the ship today. After Old Ironsides, we went to the Bunker Hill Memorial. The actual Battle of Bunker Hill was fought on Breeds Hill, so that is where the memorial is. A ranger told us about the battle and about the memorial. Then we climbed to the top. It was about 300 stairs. It was quite a view from the top.
After Bunker Hill, we took a quick stop at the Lexington Green. This is where the first battle of the Revolutionary War took place. A skirmish happened when British troops arrived here, killing 8 of 70 militiamen. This is where American colonists realized their broken relationship with the British would not be solved peacefully.
Before we left, we put on lots of stickers on the back of the trailer. Gemma put on Connecticut, Brietta put on Rhode Island, I put on Massachusetts, Melina put on Plymouth, Patuxent, and I put on Boston.
This stop was packed. Thankfully, we were able to stay at 1,000 Trails to save on costs. Cheers was quite pricey. Portions were huge and delicious, so I would recommend it. We chose to get annual memberships to the Plymouth, Patuxent, and Newport Mansions museums because it was less expensive than paying the entrance fee for all 6 of us. An added bonus of the Newport Mansions is that it provides the North American Reciprocal Museum benefits, so we were able to get into the Whaling Museum for free. Hopefully, we'll be able to use it at other museums as well. Massachusetts being Massachusetts, parking and tolls also added up quickly.
We saw a lot of important spots in American history.
See you next week on Riley's on the Road. Bye!